You're listening to Investify, preaching financial independence and assisting investors to achieve a more flexible and free lifestyle through smart financial planning and real estate investing. If leaving the corporate world and jumping into this thriving industry is what you desire, tune in and listen to stories of like-minded individuals who made the leap to financial independence. Equip yourself with the right tips and tricks to start your real estate journey, making active or passive ventures that are highly profitable and rewarding.
What's going on, everybody? You are listening to Investify. My name is Craig Curelop, aka the Fi Guy, and I'm here with my co-host, Miss Ellie Garced. What's up, Ellie?
That's me. I'm great. How are you, Craig?
I am doing phantasmerific today, Ellie. And it's a good day. We got our good buddy on the show, Mr. Nick Coulter, great guest. And yeah, I love that the weather's kind of starting to change a bit here. You're probably just like, it's gone from hot to a lot hotter where you're at,
Yeah.
right?
And yours is what? Went from like 12 inches of snow to 11?
Yep, 10 now. It's melting as we speak. I remember I was actually in Tucson like this exact time. Maybe like in a couple weeks it'll be this exact time. But it was like late May-ish last year, and
I remember.
it was it was like 115 degrees, like it said on our car, which I feel like the car is always a little hotter than it actually is. But the fact that it could even register up to 115, I just thought was like, oh my gosh. So I don't envy you. I prefer.
I remember you guys texting me about a good place to get gelato. I was like, yeah, that sounds right. It is that hot.
Yeah. Oh, it was. And then we went to that place, and then we went to Mount Lemon because it was like a lot cooler up there.
Yeah. Like 10 degrees cooler.
Like 10 degrees cooler. Yeah, it was a lot cooler. No, awesome, Allie. How's your new build doing? Are you done yet? Did you close?
No, I close at the end of the month. So 20 more days-ish. And I submitted the list of requests of things to do. So it was a model home. So it had like, all the furniture and all like the paintings hung up. So little stuff like, when they took off the paintings, it's like a bunch of holes and they tried to like cover it up with the same paint. It's not the same paint. So little things like that, that I am requesting that they fix.
Do you get a better deal on the model homes?
I don't know. It was actually the only house of that model, which happened to be the model home, or if that was that layout that happened to be that model home. And I was desperate in leaving my current neighborhood. So that's why I was like, I don't even care. We love the house. Let's buy it. Total emotional purchase. Do not recommend.
I love it. Yeah. Well, it's not really an investment though. It's just for your personal.
It's not.
Right?
Yeah. It might be actually the only house that we end up selling after we move out. So, yeah.
Cool. Well, speaking of buying and selling, we've got a real estate agent, aka Nick Coulter, the lead agent in Fi Team San Diego, on the call. For those of you who don't know, the Fi Team has expanded out to San Diego, and so definitely feel free to hit Nick up if you're looking for anything out there. But yeah, let's bring him on the show.
Let's do it.
This episode of Investify was brought to you by the Fi Team, a team of investor-friendly agents that service all 50 states. If you are looking to house hack, to invest, grow your portfolio, and want a true investor-friendly agent on your side, go to thefiteam.com and click Get Started, and we can't wait to have a good conversation with you. Nick Coulter, welcome to the show, my friend. How you doing today, bro?
What's up, Nick?
Yeah, what's up? I'm doing excellent, guys. Super excited to be on here. Very nice to meet you officially, Allie. Super pumped about you being on the show. And then Craig, good to see you again, man.
Good to see you too, man. I love that you guys were talking smack about me and I could hear everything you were saying before the show, but I couldn't defend myself. So that's always hard to do. So thanks for that.
No problem. That's how I prefer my smack talk, when it's one-sided.
When you can't, when there's no defense.
Yeah.
Well, Nick, I want to say, and I just want to tell everybody that you gave me a golf tip last year that changed my golf game. Just pointing the toe outward. I don't slice anymore, thanks to Nick. So go to Nick for all your golf tips.
Which toe? Left front foot or back foot?
Your left ring finger toe.
What the?
Yeah, your whole foot, if you just angle it out a little bit, allows you to move the hips a little bit smoother, stops the slice typically.
Golf tip. Now, let's get into some real estate tips. And Nick, why don't you tell us where you first heard about financial independence?
Yeah, so my story with financial independence starts back in 2018. So I actually relocated with my company for a promotion to Virginia. And part of that was a $5,000 bonus that I got that was paid for by the company, taxes paid for everything. And I got to the site I was working at. I worked there for about a year and 3 months, and I got my first real bonus. And I remember sitting down and looking at my bank account before my bonus dropped, and I had about $2,800 in my savings. So during that time, I was making well over six figures. I was doing great, but I was spending every single dollar that I was making. And my boss actually sat me down and was like, "Hey, what are you planning on doing with your bonus?" Because it was going to be, a couple tens of thousands of dollars. And I was like, "Oh, I'm going to buy this. I'm going to buy that." I was all jazzed on the stuff I wanted to get. And he was like, "Hey, if you don't spend it and you prove to me you haven't spent it in 30 days, I'll buy you a free lunch and we'll talk about why I wanted you to do that." And I love free food because I like free things. So I said, "Absolutely, that sounds great." And kept it in my account for 30 days. We were sitting having lunch and he was like, "How did it feel?" I was like, "Actually, it felt great. Like something crazy could happen and I had money in my account to take care of it." And that's where it really started to click for me. So he was the catalyst for me understanding the savings, the investment. He talked about he was making bonuses of $120,000, $130,000. And all he would buy every year with it was a new pair of cowboy boots. And the rest of it would go into a stock portfolio investment fund that he was working on. And he was just basically financially independent at his age. And it was amazing because he had money to walk away from the job if he ever wanted to. So that's where it started. That's where it kind of kicked off for me. And then I've been through the journey through house hacking and then moving to a super expensive market after that.
Wow. How close were you with this boss that he was? I feel like that's a close relationship, right? Like, did he know that you were spending majority of each paycheck?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We were going out to the
Okay.
bars. There was a lot of us.
Okay.
So I was a senior manager in a distribution center, and all of us around the same age. We would go out party every weekend and spend money. And I drove a ridiculously nice truck and all this kind of stuff. And so he'd always tease me about it a little bit and be like, "Wow, you make a lot of money, but you drive a nicer car than me and I make more than you. What's going on with that?" So
Yeah.
little things like that. And he asked me, "Well, why don't you buy in houses or anything?" And just kind of develop that relationship with him over time. But he's like one of my top favorite people all time, regardless of the job or not. He's a great guy, was a huge influence on me. So,
Wow, and he was your age, or he was a little older?
no, he was like 13 years older than me. Yeah, he's like
Oh, okay.
40. I mean, no, I think he's actually about 20 years older than me. He's almost 50 now.
Okay. Okay. And did he give you any sort of books or anything like that? Or was it just like you kind of just you caught up with him every so often at work?
Yeah, so he just walked me through one particular book which I loved. It was The Millionaire Next Door. So I read that book on his recommendation, and I became almost obsessed with being that really wealthy person that no one knew was wealthy. I wanted to wear inexpensive clothes. I wanted to not have super nice things, but I wanted to have a lot of security in the bank. And what I found is as I started to save and then aggressively pay down some of my debt, I started to feel more confident in some of the decisions I wanted to make. And then I had a roommate at the time that I was living with to save on rent. And he convinced me to start to dig into bigger pockets. And that's what just spun me down the rabbit hole, which led me into Scott Trench's book, Set for Life, which then led me into your book, Craig. And I, gobbled that up and then started DMing you like a fanboy on Instagram. And for those of you wondering, he did write me back. It was pretty awesome. So yeah, I kind of took it from there, really aggressively paid off my debts, and then moved back from Virginia to California. So I can get into that story about the debt pay down and everything and purchasing our first house hack.
So you made the move from Virginia. Did you say Virginia to LA?
Virginia, California.
Virginia
Like
to
the,
California.
yep.
And so what made that move? Was that just a new job, or what happened with that transition?
Yeah, so I'm originally from California, and if anyone's from California listening to the podcast, you know that no place is quite like home from California. We don't actually know anything exists past Colorado until you hit Florida. It's just kind of like a big section of the country we don't understand. So, my wife and I wanted to get back. We were just dating at that time, and we are originally from the area. She's from San Diego. I'm from the Inland Empire. So we have a bunch of our distribution warehouses at my job in that area. And so I transferred back laterally in the same position I was in. So kind of during that time, we had about a year to plan. So in that year, I paid off $27,000 of my student debt, got that down to zero. I paid off $7,000 of my car debt when I traded in my truck for my Honda Civic to save on gas and save on price. I paid $10,000 cash for her engagement ring, which looking back, I should have probably gone lab grown diamond, save a little bit of dollars. No one would have known any different. And then I also had to come up with the $13,000 down for our first house hack, which was my portion of the down payment. So I did all that in a year. I went super restrictive, didn't spend any money on anything that wasn't of necessity and value. And then I was able to start to add things back in once we got our first house hack down in the Inland Empire.
One thing I want to say is that sometimes like the perfect time to change lots of habits is when you're doing a move. Right. I moved from San Francisco to Denver, and that's when I was like, I'm wiping my slate clean. My only friends I'm going to make are real estate friends. I'm going to save every dollar I have, side hustle on the side, like exactly kind of what you did, Nick, in order to just save frivolously. So like, what were some of those things that you were spending on in Virginia that you were no longer spending on when moved to California?
Yeah, food and alcohol. So I was spending on average going out on the weekends and eating out with my friends and my girlfriend around $2,100 a month. It was actually kind of insane, the amount of money that I was out shelling. Yeah. That and then my car payment. So my car payment on my truck was like $740. Insurance on it was $140 a month. So getting rid of that car, paying off the Honda Civic fully, I went and started saving almost $3,000 a month that I was able to apply to the debt. So I cut that out when I was in Virginia, which was tough because I was used to the lifestyle I was in. But moving back to California, I just kept the habits rolling and then started house hacking, which really launched our financial position forward.
So that adds up to like around half of what you ended up saving for us, because you altogether you cut $57,000. I added it up, $57K in 1 year. Congrats, that's amazing. How else did you, aside from not drinking and not going out to eat, what else did you do?
Yeah, the last thing I did, you guys are going to laugh. So I started 2 little mini side hustles. So, you know, the bird scooters you guys see people riding around?
Oh, yeah.
I actually charged them. So I would go around at like 9 o'clock at night and then pick them all up. I actually got a bunch of chargers off of Craigslist from people who didn't want to do it anymore. So I would like wheel them into my apartment at night, charge them all up, and then drop them off at 5:30 in the morning in these specific areas in Virginia because I live like right next to downtown. And then I also started doing people's resumes online for extra cash. So then anything that I got from those 2 side hustles, I just immediately started tucking away into debt. And that's mostly what I did with the student debt. I would get my account to be funded from those side hustles, and then I would immediately just deposit that money toward the student debt to pay that off.
Oh my gosh. Did you pay utilities at your apartment?
I did, but you'd be shocked that it only went up like $30 a month. And I was making almost like $85 a day doing it because I was able to, in my truck, I was able to pick up so many scooters.
Oh, that's amazing. Look at that.
Yeah.
Hey, the truck was worth something.
Yeah, at that point. Not as much when I moved to California.
No, I think you get like, well, not guns pointed at you because guns aren't allowed in California, but like you get some dirty looks if you're driving a big truck in California, I have to say.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Southern New York too.
Yeah.
See, that's why Idaho's great, bro. You come drive big trucks and
yeah.
you drive whatever you want. Yeah. All right, man. So let's get into the for real deal. All right, Nick, this is the first deal that you've done, whether intentionally or unintentionally, that is an investment property for you now. So why don't you dive in and spill the tea? Tell us all the deets.
Absolutely. So our first property we bought in April of 2020. So we closed on our first house hack in Redlands, California. It was a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house. My fiance then, well, right before we actually got engaged, we had a conversation about what we wanted to do financially in our long-term plan. Our plan was to get to San Diego in 5 years. And we were, full steam ahead on whatever we needed to do to get that done. So one of the ideas I brought up to her after reading your book, Craig, was house hacking. And I told her, I was like, man, I could buy this house with you. We can rent out our spare rooms to strangers on the internet and they can pay our mortgage. And she was like, you're crazy. And I was like, am I though? So then I had her read the book and she was like, this Craig guy's crazy. He lived behind a curtain. And I was like, I know, he's nuts. We'll be a little less nuts and we'll live in the master bedroom. So Yeah, we ended up going in on the house. I was actually in Virginia still, and that was like the peak of COVID fear without any real spread of the virus. So my company actually grounded all flights. So I couldn't fly back and forth to California. So I actually had my wife out here who was already in her new role with the company, and she was looking at houses. I saw one on Zillow. I sent it over to my realtor, and he was like, "Hey man, like you don't need this much house." And I was trying to explain to him what I wanted to do. Great realtor, but just worked with like regular people, not like investors looking to do this crazy thing called house hacking. So it was a corner lot, ample parking. The rooms were much larger than the rest of the common area in the house, which is kind of a perfect setup for us so that we could have larger rooms that we could charge a little bit more for. And then the shared bathroom was pretty large, which was a huge selling point for us. So we went and put an offer in on the house. The house was listed at $399. I wanted to guarantee we got it, and everyone was talking about the market crashing. So I put in an offer at $420,000, so $20,000 over asking, but we asked for $15,000 in seller credits, and we were able to get that. We got locked it up under contract, closed April 6th. We painted the house, we switched out all of the appliances, and we spent, I don't know, probably around $6,100 doing all of that. And we were able to get our first room rented out within 2 weeks.
Can you explain a little bit on what you mean by seller concessions?
Yeah, so we went in a little bit higher on the offer, and then we got seller concessions on the back end, which basically credited us at closing to allow us to cover all of our closing costs in our loan, which is great for me because at the end of the day, I paid $405,000 for the house, not really $420,000 for the house. And then I didn't have to come out of pocket with my seller concession or my closing costs. So I was able to finance those costs over 30 years, which was a lot better than shelling out an extra 15 grand out of pocket to pay for it.
Right. And especially with low interest rates those days, right? You're basically borrowing 15 grand from the bank. Your mortgage payment probably goes up maybe $50 a month, but you got $15,000 in your pocket, which is worth a lot more to you now. And so,
Yeah.
Awesome, man. So what was the mortgage payment on that property and what would you end up getting in rents for the rooms? Spill the tea.
Yeah. So we were actually moving back from Virginia to California at the time. And we found a house, at least I found a house on Zillow that I was pushing to my realtor. It was like perfect for house hacking. It was a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, corner lot, tons of parking. The rooms were a little bit bigger with a lot smaller, like shared living space. It was like ideal for the house hack. And my realtor was like, I don't know, it's like a lot of house for you guys. You don't really need something like that. Because he was working with a lot of like regular buyers, not necessarily a house hacker, didn't really understand the concept. So my wife went to go see it because I was actually in Virginia at the time. They had grounded all flights, so I couldn't fly back and forth to see the house. So she went and saw it with my mom. I did what any good millennial would do when there's a tough decision to be made. I call my mom to help me out. So
Love it.
she went with my wife. They looked at the house. They thought it was great. It was listed at $399. We put in an offer at $420, and we asked for $15,000 in seller concessions. And what that basically did is at the closing table, that wiped out our closing costs. So we got to keep that 15 grand in our pocket, which was awesome. So we were able to get the house locked up. Our PITI was $2,450, and we were able to get our first bedroom rented out for $750, our next bedroom at $800, and our last bedroom at $850. So we're bringing $2,400 on the mortgage, basically living for less than a couple $100 a month in California.
And that's amazing. I thought you couldn't house hack in California. That's not possible.
Yeah, that's what I've heard people say, and I think they're either scared or they're not willing to take on a larger home, which is what you have to do. You have to get a minimum of 4 bedrooms, 2 baths. I suggest people get a 5-3 down here when I'm helping clients because you get that additional revenue on that 5th bedroom. But it works, and it works really well in the Inland Empire.
I will say that realtor, the one that said you don't need that much house, good on them. You know, before they realize that you have different goals, good on them, because I do not see a lot of realtors saying that. They're like, "Oh, what's your pre-approval amount? 700? Let's do 700." You know, so
I'm going to say good on them because they are doing their job and they truly did have your best interest in mind. However, that just stresses the importance of having an investor-friendly realtor that can actually talk the talk and walk the walk and help and guide you through finding a property, analyzing the property, and making sure it's set up properly for you. And so did you continue with that realtor, Nick, or you were kind of like on your own, or did you have a realtor as guidance down there?
Yeah, so he was like a friend of a coworker of mine. So we just kind of linked up that way. And then honestly, I was able to just continue to buy my own houses after that because I got my own license.
Awesome, man. So it sounds like that first house hack was a great success. You were living for just a couple $100 in California, and that includes like you paying utilities and all that, which again, like everyone thinks is impossible to do. And you mentioned you got your license for the next one. I guess why did you get your license? Like why did you go that route instead of just continuing doing your high paying job?
Yeah, so I read this amazing book called The House Hacking Strategy, and in it, the author talks about getting their license so that, worst case scenario, you buy your own every year, and then you get to save on the commissions, and it covers your realtor fees, 5 or 10 times over for the year. So I figured I could do that, and I also had a couple friends ask me what I wanted to do with the license, and I told them that I could help them do the same thing that I was doing with the houses. And so I studied for way longer than I probably should have because I have a pretty demanding W-2. So it took me a lot longer than I should have taken to get the license. It took me about 13 months and it probably only should have taken me 6. But then I reached out to Craig once I got my license. I was like, hey, man, we should start a team down in Southern California. And he was like, yeah, we'll see. And then about 2 weeks after, he calls me and he's like, hey, I think I was having some limiting beliefs, man. Let's get a team down there as part of the FI team. And my motivation for joining the team was not so much being a fanboy of Craig's, which I definitely am / was even more so. But really I wanted to figure out like a way to help people do what I was doing and start them with house hacking, because it literally changed my financial picture in less than 18 months. I mean, I went from a net worth of maybe $140,000 to almost $500,000 in that 18 months, just because the appreciation, the savings, all the different things that happened. It was kind of insane.
Amazing. Obviously, shameless plug to the house hacking strategy, right? One of the best real estate books of all time. I believe it's on that list.
The best.
But and Nick, I got a bone to pick with you. What do you mean you was a fanboy and not are still a fanboy? What am I worse to you now?
No, you're not. You're not worse. No, you're just like a really good guy. So like I was kind of like putting you up there, like, oh, this is like he's so out, like he's a this, that, and the other, and like it's intimidating. And now it's like I'm talking to my friend Craig. Like you're a really awesome, normal guy. So I was like kind of intimidated. Now, not as much.
Oh, okay, that's crazy. I don't think that anybody is ever intimidated by me. That's like because I don't think I'm an intimidating person. But that's really funny. So all right, Nick, I'll appreciate that. I appreciate all the glamour you're giving me and saying that I'm a good guy, even if I did pay you to say that. All right, man. So you got your license. I think that is obviously wise advice to get your license if you plan on doing a deal every year. You're just going to say right now, instead of doing 3%, like if you do a 5% down loan, now and you get 3% back, you're just paying 2% out of pocket, right? Like it's kind of a no brainer. So Nick, tell us about the second property and kind of timing on it and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So 2021 was pretty crazy. People were offering 60, 70, 80,000 over ask, and the market was super clogged up. We couldn't actually get another house hack in the Inland Empire, which was our plan. So instead we started pivoting and focusing on getting another house in San Diego. So we actually looked for an entire year before we found the perfect property. We made 4 or 5 offers before we landed the one we did. But we found a duplex in North Park. So the top unit is a 4-bedroom, 2-bath. And then there's a studio unit built into the crawl space. So the house was listed at $1.6 million. This was in November of 2022. The market was slowing down. It was getting really, really tight. And we were able to get an offer accepted at $1.45 million with $45,000 in seller concessions.
Did you say November 22 or 21?
November 22.
Oh, okay. So you actually waited quite a bit then to get your second one.
Yeah, unfortunately, we just sat there because the market was so insane down here. The numbers weren't making sense on any offers we were trying to put in.
Right, and so you finally found. And so what you liked about this one was that it had the bigger unit that you could rent out, and then you could occupy the smaller space. Or what'd you like about this property?
Yeah, so in San Diego, to break even on your mortgage, you got to do some creative strategies. So we actually went the Airbnb house hack route. So we did the front unit on Airbnb, and we ran the numbers conservatively. It would produce about $10,000 a month, and we would able to live in the bottom unit. So rates were really high. So I actually got a 6.99 interest rate, which was crazy expensive, but it ended up working out for us.
Nice. I would love to talk about the Airbnb laws, especially being out in San Diego. Everyone's scared of, every city has their own different regulations. What are yours, and how can other people in other cities find out what the regulations are in their own city?
Yeah, so I've actually been tracking this since 2019 when the bill was put in front of the city of San Diego's city council. So they were voting to restrict the total number of supply. So we have four tiers now. You have tier 1 and 2, which is home ownership tier. So tier 1, you live in the house and you rent it out fully for less than 20 days a year. Tier 2 is you're in a home share, which is a duplex, triplex, or quad, and you're automatically given a license. Then you have tier 3 and tier 4. Tier 3 is you don't live in the home. It's fully an investment property, and that is limited to 1% of the total housing supply in the city of San Diego. And then tier 4 is Mission Beach, which is 3% of the total housing supply in Mission Beach. So they were cutting down Airbnbs effectively. I think there was 17,000 listings active in the city of San Diego, and then they only gave out 7,500 permits. So it shrunk down drastically. So I knew as long as I did the house hack and I owner occupied it, I can guarantee myself a license to be able to rent it out.
So you will automatically get a license if you buy a duplex, triplex, or fourplex?
Yeah, as long as you guys owner occupy it. Yep, if you're living in the house, you will automatically get a license. And I've helped 3 clients now do the same thing down in San Diego.
Could you do that with a single family home, or does it have to be a duplex, triplex, or quad?
So you could technically do it with a single family home because you could occupy one of the rooms, but the Airbnb market out there, I think you would struggle because you'd have to rent it out by the individual bedroom, since it'd be a little weird. But I would say you could do it. I've seen people do it and talk to investors that have had some success, but I would try to go the duplex or triplex route.
Wow, amazing. So in San Diego, the duplex, triplex thing actually works, which is kind of insane. Because you usually, like in Denver, for example, the duplex, triplex, it doesn't work great. We hope this episode is inspiring you to take action. If you're thinking about becoming a real estate agent or an agent who wants to join an investor-friendly team, just hit me up on Instagram at @TheFiGuy, because we are growing our team in Denver, Seattle, San Diego, and Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, but also adding to our network in all 50 states. And if you didn't already know this, the Fi team provides a super supportive environment with one-on-one coaching, accountability, and ongoing training to help develop kick-ass, rock star, investor-friendly real estate agents. So hit me up on Instagram at @TheFiGuy, shoot me a DM, and we'll set up a time to chat. Can't wait to chat with you. So you move into this duplex, right? You get your license because you were living there. Now what happens in year 2 when you move out of the license? When you move out of the house hack, does the license get revoked, or does the license stay in place?
So if you move out, the license does get revoked. You have to owner occupy the property. So that is why my wife and I actually, when we got the property, they opened up the draw for the number of licenses for the tier 3, which is an investment property. And we actually were able to secure a license in the tier 3 status. So we live there, but we have a tier 3 license on it. So once we move out, we can keep all of the units as Airbnbs. So we got lucky.
Yeah, how lucky is that? Like, is that a sustainable thing? Could someone kind of rely on that happening? Or
in my opinion, no. So they only had 7,500 licenses they gave out during that time. We were lucky enough to get one. They have a pool where people fall out of the license, and then you can get a new one based on someone dropping out, but it's going to be really constricted, I think, going forward. So we kind of like squeezed in there right at the right time. But that's why I'm such a fan of the House Act too, because in San Diego, the appreciation is what really fuels your wealth with the house. So I don't plan on making a ton of cash flow on this property over the time that I'd be there. But I've already, from 1.45, if I got an appraisal right now, it'd come in probably around 1.6. So I've already increased my, net worth by 150 grand in equity.
Nice. In like 6 months.
Yeah. It's been pretty sweet. Yeah.
And so I guess let's talk a little bit about, you bought a $1.6 million property. What loan did you use for that? I think that's probably outside of FHA limits. What did you have to do to make that happen?
So sadly it is. And I didn't want to go jumbo because the jumbo rates were like 8.5% at that time. So I actually put 15% down on the loan. So I put over $260,000 down to lower my loan limit to 1.22, which was just under the conforming limit for duplexes in San Diego for a conventional loan.
Oh, wow. Okay. And so how did you come up with that cash? Were you just, saving and charging bird scooters or?
Yeah, my wife and I were super frugal for the 2.5 years that we were in our first house hack. We saved every rent check we got. We actually put it in a separate account and then paid the mortgage as if we didn't have any roommates. So you do the math of $24,000 a month times around 28 months. That was a huge chunk of it. We also had really high paying jobs. We both make over 6 figures. So we were able to save in addition to that because we live a very frugal lifestyle. And then I took a $60,000 loan on my 401k to come up with the rest.
Oh, nice. And you also mentioned that you became a first of all, you became the realtor that you needed originally, right? So because you're a house hacker yourself and now you're helping other clients. At this point, were you helping other clients too with your license, or is it just still on for you and your own benefit?
Yeah, so I actually closed a deal with a client in the Inland Empire right before I closed on my house. And then I've since closed a couple more deals with folks, some in San Diego and then some down in the Inland Empire as well. So I was helping other people house hack. And it was funny because one of the people I helped, it was earlier this year, I was able to have them occupy a duplex like 3 blocks away from me. And it's a traditional 2 on a lot style. So they have a front house that's a 4-2 and a back house that's a 2-1, and they just closed on that house for 1.7 million. And then they're actually Airbnb-ing it out as well. We gave them all of our templates. We walked them through the process. We got them all set up with it. And they were able to break even their first 2 months of having it live on Airbnb.
There it is, man. That's exactly why, like, whatever area you're in, like, you gotta find your investor-friendly real estate agent, because it sounds like you just made that process super easy, super turnkey for them, and like that's exactly what you're looking to do. That's what you need.
And you know the rules. Like you know the short-term rental rules that everyone is so scared of. Just California, they're scared of. New York, they're scared of. But if you know the rules, then you can play the game. So that's awesome.
Amazing. Yeah, it's so funny how every city has its own little like its best strategies that work. And I know California is. I mean, I think they're population issue in California, right? And so they need more higher density houses. They allow people to do these ADU things, and that's a really good play out there. Um, on your house, Nick, like what would you suggest to somebody that wants to house hack in San Diego, but that maybe doesn't have a dual income of over $200,000 a year?
So I would tell people there are affordable 5 bedroom, 3 baths. Obviously, anyone in San Diego, you're going to be paying significantly more. There's no $400,000 houses that are 4 or 5 bedrooms, right? So I've actually been trying to target some markets that are a little bit further out of the heart of the city. So we're talking a little bit east and a little bit north. Looking at 5 bedroom, 2 baths that are going to cost you around 800 or 850,000 and putting the 5% down. You just got to make sure you qualify. But typically the pay for folks down there that are looking to buy houses is much higher. So that's what I would tell people is look for a 5.2, look for a 5.3, because right now room rentals down in San Diego are kind of crazy. If you get a private bathroom, you can charge $1,500 for a room rental. And if you don't have a private bathroom, it's like $1,250. It's insane.
Wow. Yeah. You know what's also insane is Tucson is not far behind that. That's crazy. I would have never had Tucson the same level as San Diego. But if you have a private bathroom in Tucson, depending on the area, but mediocre area, that's $1,200, $1,300. What compared to San Diego? That's insane. I would like to talk more about the 401k loan. Would you advise that for your clients? How did that work for you? And just other nuances to be aware of.
Yeah, so I think it's a great loan product. So my company offers a primary residence penalty-free draw. So I was able to draw and was able to set up a loan for 20 years. And on the 20 years, I pay bi-weekly, and it's $168 out of my check for a $60,000 loan for 20 years at like 6% is what I think I set the rate at. So I thought it was great. It allowed me to be able to have the money down to land the property. And I would suggest that if you have access to that, you should be able to do it because I have a much higher return on investment in that San Diego property than I do on my 401k right now.
Nick, question on the 401k. Are you paying yourself that 6% interest, or are you paying some third party that is lending you based on your 401k?
I'm paying myself. Yeah, so I pay myself. So I set the interest rate and I set it as low as possible.
Okay, so you're paying yourself. Then who facilitates this whole thing? Is it just the custodian that you hold your 401k with?
Yep.
Okay, so that's amazing. And I think a lot of people may not know about that, right? Like I know that when I had my first job, they did a 401k match to the max. And so at the time it was like 18,000. And so I would put $18,000 in and I would get $18,000 from my company. And so at the end of year one, I had like $36,000. By 2 years in, I had almost $100,000 in my 401k. Like all of my net worth was in my 401k for that reason. And I did not know about this 401k loan at the time, or if I did, I was too scared to do anything about it. And so I think that's crazy. Nick, one more question I have on this 401k loan. Can you have it invested in something and still take a loan on it, whether it's in stocks or real estate or something like that?
Yeah, so I'm super heavily and aggressively invested in my 401k. At the time, I had $230,000 in it, and I was able to draw up to 85, I think was the number they allowed me to draw just based on how much was in the account and how much it had grown. So I only pulled out 60 because that's all I needed, but I could have gone up to 85, and I'm still super aggressively invested. And actually, the market's kind of bounced back since I pulled my loan out in November. So I've actually closed the gap on my total loan by quite a bit if you look at it, but I still have to pay back that amount or else I'll pay a penalty.
I see. I see. Amazing. And what do you think about just like totally just withdrawing your 401k and just kind of saying, like pay the penalty, pay the taxes, like, you'll be rich enough someday where you probably won't even notice it. And you think about like, you can't access that thing for like 35 years.
Yeah, I would say if you were well versed and knew what you were doing with the investment, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, but I would say as like a first time house hacker, I would just do the 5% down. And then once you get one or two under your belt, then I would say you feel more confident to pull that trigger. Because then you're not really having a retirement plan at the end of the day.
Awesome, man. Yeah. So what's crazy about your story, dude, is that not only that you moved across the country and that you were charging bird scooters, but you were able to house hack in probably like top 5 most expensive markets in the whole US, in San Diego. And so, and make it work. And not only for you, but for like a handful of other people as well, to just prove that, yeah, you did get a little lucky with that draw of a permit, but you've been able to help other people too, which proves that it's not just luck, that you've got something for you there. And so, what's next for you, man?
Yeah, so we're building our garage into a 2-bedroom, 2-bath unit. So right now we're currently into the process of getting a construction loan, and we're going to build the unit. It's going to cost me about $280 a square foot. So it'll cost me about 280 grand. But we're going to be able to have it resold at $600 a square foot if we were ever to sell off the APN or fracture the property. So that's what we're doing next. So we're hoping to break ground after the busy season in Airbnb in October. And we will kind of discount the house for a while to then allow us to still get bookings in. But that's what's next for me. And then after that, my wife and I plan to move out since we have it under permit, rent all the units out at Airbnb. Preliminary numbers are showing $6,000 or $7,000 in cash flow, which is huge. It's my wife's job if she wanted to retire early. And then we would buy another horribly crappy duplex and then get a tier 2 license and then Airbnb the other half. And then we plan on doing the Mindy way. So we're just going to do live-in flips every 2 years until we're got a completely paid off house.
Nice.
You're going to do live-in flips. So, okay, hold on. I need to unpack this strategy a bit. When you move out of this duplex, what are you going to do with your short-term rental?
I'm going to keep it as a short-term rental. Yeah. So since we have the permit, the tier 3 permit, we're good to keep it. Oh, that's
right. You've got the tier 3. Yeah. And so does that mean you can rent it out as different units on that property too? Or do you need a separate license per unit?
So you can rent it out as the total property. You can rent it out, or you can rent out the subdivided units on it. So I have it under as a duplex. So what I'm planning on doing is I'm actually planning on renting out the 4-bedroom, 2-bath, which is grossing around that $10,000 a month that we marked. AirDNA has us about $6,000 a month on the 2 that we'll build. And then the studio showing about $2,500. But I actually have a handyman that I know super well who I might have stay in the studio unit at a discounted rate, because then if we're not at the house, they could be like our kind of catch-all with everything that goes on in the area.
Wow. And the handyman would want to move in?
Yeah, it's a younger friend of a friend of ours, like a family friend. It's a younger guy. He's a handyman. He's like, dude, I want cheap rent. If that studio ever comes available, I'll rent it from you, and then I'll do all the work in the house. I was like, sick.
So short, I want some clarity, because when you say Airbnb, do you strictly mean that you have your properties just on Airbnb, or do you also have them on other websites? If so, which ones?
Yeah, so we do VRBO and Airbnb. We normally get about 95% of our business on Airbnb in San Diego. I don't know why that is, but we've had a couple bookings through Vrbo. But I like the Airbnb platform quite a bit. I wish they charged you a little bit less of a surcharge, if I'm being honest, because it's, a couple percent here. It really hurts. But the platform's been great. We've had no bad guest experiences. We've had some parties and stuff like that, but we live on site and we make it very clear in the listing that we do. So everyone respects the space pretty well.
Okay, Nick, you mentioned that you want to do that live and flip strategy. So what I'm gathering is that after you get this next house, you're going to buy kind of a rundown one. You're going to fix it up yourself. You're going to live there for 2 years, and then you're not going to rent it out. Maybe while you're living there, you're going to rent it out, but you're going to sell it. You're going to hopefully achieve $500,000 in tax-free capital gains, and you're going to use that $500,000 to then pay down your initial investments. So your goal is not to have a massive portfolio. It sounds like you want to have two paid off houses that are producing a total of $15,000 to $20,000 a month.
Yeah, I don't like a ton of responsibility for a lot of units. It sounds kind of like a waste of time, in my opinion, if you could buy a couple houses that do really well. So that's our strategy. So we want a paid off house with San Diego. So our plan is to use the live in flips to do that. And then we plan on using our regular income and the things that we're bringing in on the side, the realtor job, the W-2 job, to buy additional out of state and out of country Airbnb. So we're actually looking in Mexico. So my wife is a Mexican citizen, so she can own the property outright in her name. So we're looking to buy a home maybe in Puerto Vallarta or somewhere that's like very tropical in Mexico, so we can Airbnb it. And then we're also looking at, the typical A-class markets for short-term rentals to buy another one. So we can have 2 or 3 houses making quite a bit of money, and then she could completely retire, and then I'll continue to work.
Nice. And you're going to continue to look at some out-of-state markets is what it sounds like?
Yeah, we really like the Smoky Mountains just because we like to go there. So we want to buy properties that we enjoy using. So we want to do one in the Smoky Mountains. We'd love to buy one in the Outer Banks in North Carolina. I just get a little hesitant with hurricanes. They scare me a little bit, but those properties make a killing down there.
Bro, don't you think the Smoky Mountains are maybe a little oversaturated? I feel like everyone's talking about the Smoky Mountains.
I think so. What I would probably do is buy something that was really run down and fix it up. So I was invested a little bit heavier on the cash side of it, but I could still cash flow enough to keep it, because I wouldn't need it to make a ton if I was making so much on a couple of our other houses. I just want something that I could use as continued tax benefits, and then also just have a place we would want to go.
Nick, man, this has been you've got a crazy story, and again, I love it because you're doing things that other people said you could never do, and that is house hack an extremely expensive market like San Diego. And so I want to, and now that we know what's next for you, it's time to head into the final part of our show. Before we get there, do you have any parting words of advice for the audience?
I would just say to everyone, if you have a partner in life, it's really important to get them on board and you guys be on the same page going into your investing journey. So my wife and I are like lockstep with each other, same page, same sentence. And she's one of the most important people I've ever met in my life, and she's wonderful. She's been just as much an advocate for this as I have. And so it's really allowed us to kind of build a future together. And I think that's one of the more special things you can get out of financial independence.
Yeah, I love that. Having your spouse on board makes life a lot more fun. Awesome. Well, you know what time it is, Allie?
It is time for the
final
four.
These are the same 4 questions we ask everybody, Mr. Nick, and I'll let you kick us off, Allie.
Question number 1. What are you reading right now, Nick?
So I'm currently rereading Atomic Habits. I really liked the book the first time I read through it. So this is actually my 3rd. And I'm just trying to re-up on my ability to execute, because I need to get a little bit better every day and start to do a little bit more with my time. So trying to get back into that, rereading that right now.
All right, Nick, what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
I would have to say it goes back to the bonus conversation I had with my boss, that saving money and investing for the future allows you to be in a position to be more comfortable. He told me money doesn't buy happiness, but it buys ease of access to things that you may want or need. And that was the greatest piece of advice I've gotten, because it really changed my perspective on things.
Question number 3. What is your why?
So my why is my future family. So my mom and dad both made career decisions to spend a lot of time with us. So my dad quit a very high paying corporate job to be a teacher and spend more time with his kids. And my mom ran her own business to be able to do basically the same thing. So I'd say my why is I want to be able to give those opportunities to my family. And I feel the happiness and the most whole when I'm with my wife and we're just hanging out, spending time together. So I want to be able to replicate that as much as possible. And I imagine I'm going to feel that just more intensified with kids. So that's the angle I want to take on life. And, I can make a lot of money and work 65 hours a week and never see them and be miserable, or I can make a little bit less money, invest smartly, and live uncomfortably now to then be able to have that time back with them for the rest of my life.
I like that.
I'd say that's wise. That's wise words. All right, Nick, final question. What is the worst song ever?
Oh man, I can tell you what the best song is ever. I'm gonna go the worst song ever. Oh, I'm gonna go WAP from Cardi B. I hate that song so much, dude. It is the worst song I've ever heard. It's not good.
Dude, you want to know something funny? I saw this, I think it was a TikTok the other day, and I'm not on TikTok much, but this one was funny, is that in 2020, you know how they were trying to cancel the song Baby It's Cold Outside? The one that was written in the 1940s about, just a man and a woman together, and the woman wanted to go, but it was cold, and the man wanted her to stay. And at that time, when they were trying to cancel it, WAP was the number one song in the U.S. It's like, how could you be offended at that song and not WAP? Awesome, Nick. Well, where can people find out more about you? Hey, if they're in San Diego and they're looking for an investor-friendly agent to make something work, or you name it, or anywhere else on Instagram, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, so I have two main accounts. One that I host with my buddy. It's called The W2 Amigos. It is my best friend X and I. We have a little podcast on the side about W2 work and investing. Him and I are super active on there, so he would be those would be the account I would reach out to get super close access to me. And then also at the Fi Family on Instagram. That's my personal investment account. So if you guys want to reach out to me, I'd love to chat more and then help you guys out if you want.
Awesome. Thank you for coming on, Nick.
Nick, thanks so much for coming on, dude. Your story is truly inspiring, and go out there and keep crushing it. And yeah, man, good to see you.
Yeah, it's great to see you guys too. Appreciate the time, and look forward to chatting with you guys again.
Absolutely.
And that was Nick Coulter. Allie, what'd you think about Nick?
I loved Nick. Nick is such a nice guy. He's knowledgeable. He is clearly a great realtor, and he knows the ins and outs of the market to be able to make short-term rentals work in the state of California. You can't get better than that. So that's amazing.
Yeah, no, I love Nick. Nick's such a good dude. I think he's I feel like every time we chat, it's always, you always feel good after. Tons of, joke around, tons of good stuff. And he's super, super knowledgeable. And not only that, but he just takes action as well. It sounds like immediately when his mentor told him to stop spending money, he sold his truck, did all this stuff to then make it so him and his wife could have a better future. And it's really a thing, this delayed gratification thing. I'm so excited to see where this community that we're part of is in 5 to 10 years. Because we'll probably still be doing something similar, honestly, because we just love doing this stuff. But it's just going to be cool. What is this delayed gratification going to actually get all of us? And I think it might be a farm in Idaho. It might be maybe a nice little place in DC, something like that, right? What are your dreams, Allie?
I would love to go back to the East Coast, specifically DC, which is why you mentioned that. We were talking about that before. I love DC, but similar to Nick, my goal is not to have a huge empire. You don't need it. You really don't. So his is just a couple of properties. Mine also just a couple of properties paid off. That's our overall goal. And just do whatever we want to do in the day, which most likely would be podcasting anyway, and continuing our realtor business anyway.
Coming on Investify, that's right. Awesome, Allie. Well, if you guys liked this episode and you liked Nick, definitely share this with your friends. Drop us a good review on iTunes and all the places that you can leave reviews. Follow Miss Allie Garced at Allie the Agent. I'm at the Fi Guy, and we'll see you guys all next time.
See ya.
That's it for this episode of Investify. We hope that these nuggets of real estate wisdom lead to more savvy financial planning and a clearer path towards financial freedom. For more content like this, subscribe to the show at investify.com. Don't forget to leave a rating and share it with your friends. Together, we can transform more real estate newbies into successful and clever investors. Thank you so much for listening. See you on the next one.